Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Hey guys, what's up? So hopefully you'll find this video I'm about to make useful for you. And if you do find it helpful and useful, maybe I'll try to make some more in the future for you guys. So if you do like it, then be sure to hit finger bang that subscribe button and like button, and then it'll encourage me to produce more for you for sure. Anyway, today we're going to be designing a initial letter logo. It's going to have like a metallic look with a glossy finish. So the video is going to be about an hour long. So there's going to be like some repetitive parts. So I would advise people that know what they're doing to kind of skip those parts, to speed it up for you guys. But it's going to be like, from start to finish. You'll see the whole process. So I know a lot of people like to see beginning from end without, any speed ups. So I think we'll keep it without the speed ups. And but it can get some repetitive, for people that are more advanced users, I guess. So please feel free to, skip them bits and go to the bits that interest you more. But this is going to be for like intermediate level, because I'm not going to be really explaining the how to use the tools and stuff in such detail. So if you are just beginning, you might struggle a little bit to understand what's going on. So I'd advise to learn the tools and stuff first before watching this, and you'll get a lot more out of it. But having said that, I think you can still learn a great deal if you do watch. I mean, I tried to explain a few things, what I'm doing and stuff, so hopefully you can follow along still. And I will be using a PC, so just to give you a warning, it won't be a Mac. And if by the way, if you guys feel like you need a logo designing or anything, then feel free to contact me. I'll provide the necessary links within the description. So yeah, we'll take it on from there. So I've got a little S here. Basically this font I'm using is Arrow, and in its current state this one's editable. And what I do is I go ahead and outline. This is the effect we're gonna try to kind of emulate, not exactly, but along these sort of lines with the chrome sort of like bezeled effect, the hard edge and the gloss, but in a slightly different style. Okay, we'll just see where it takes us. I'm kind of doing this on the fly. So as you can see, I've got the text layer here, and what I've done is outlined it, so it's become like a graphic now. It's no longer a text file, so you can manipulate the anchor points when you outline it, as you can see. So once you've outlined it, you can start, customizing it to how you want. So this is not planned, just working out what would look good, and just try and use a bit of creative flair. So I make a little box here and place it on top, get the width correct, and just play around. And so yeah, make sure things are aligned so you don't get any of these strange bumps and stuff, these stepping effects and stuff. And so I use the direct selection tool a lot, so I can manipulate the anchor points. So I've turned the opacity down here a little bit, and so I can see what I'm doing underneath, and so I can adjust accordingly, and get the anchor points aligned up to that graphic text, because I'm like adding elements in and stuff, so I want everything to be like symmetrical, aligned together. So that's what you see me doing here. And also press shift when you're doing this, so You know, things align nice and square, and they don't go up and down in weird, you know, increments. So they become flush, basically. So I'm just playing around with the shapes and stuff, adding bits in, see what looks good, because I really have no idea which direction it's going to go at this point. And that's the beauty of, you know, working with live graphics, I guess, because, yeah, you go where the feeling, the mood takes you, what looks good in your eye. So experimenting here, see if this works, and it doesn't really, does it? So change it around, move things, play around, guys, play around. When you're creating these things, have fun, create something that looks good, or at least kind of pleasing. So you'll see me spending some time just working things out, seeing what looks good. Also, I chose quite a bold font, as you can see, because it gives you more leeway to play around with, you know, stuff like this, especially. So I'd encourage you to use fonts like this if you're doing like graphical elements, such as what we're doing. Well, so here I'm using the Pathfinder tool and deleting, you know, bits that I don't need. So yeah, hopefully you guys know how to use the Pathfinder tool. So I usually do the minus front option. So you put like a graphics on top of what you're going to be deleting, and well, the top one will be deleted, the bottom one will remain when you do minus front. So experiment with that. It's like the second option on that Pathfinder one on the left. Again, I'm like mirroring the elements onto the letter. Flip things around, see what looks better. This is just my showing my design process, you know, so you can see what I'm evaluating, what's working for me and what's not, and do things accordingly. So again, adding little bits here and there, see if, you know, they can work as an element. I didn't really like that, so yeah, way too much. So I'm going to create like a little anchor point at the middle there, and that way I can manipulate it as like so. Again, added a little anchor point, and I'm trying to make it diagonally flush. What's the word? diagonally aligned with each other. So I'll show you a little technique I use. It's a really quick, dirty technique I use to try and get it aligned. So I make a little graphic element and then place it on top, drop the opacity so I can see what's going underneath, and I actually make a new layer and put it on the new layer. And now I can actually just maneuver this around, select it very easily without disturbing the layer underneath, the letter S, because that's on a separate layer. And I'll lock it as well, if you can see the lock sign. And yeah, so now I can adjust accordingly, and so it's like a guide layer almost. And I've gone back to my bottom layer now where the S is, and I can move the anchor points there without moving the guide now, because the guide point is, the layer is locked. So yeah, so that's something you can do as well very easily. So a little point there that deleted, little graphic element that's straying over. Now I'm going to use the pathfinder again and unify everything, make it one solid object so they're not separated anymore. So this is looking like a quite a funky S, you know, a bit different, and I'm happy with that. And so what I use here is the pathfinder, and I'm gonna put some outlines internally a couple of times and out, so it expands a little bit as well. And we're gonna, this is what you need to do to get the bezeled effect later on, so you need quite a few of them. So yeah, just watch and learn. So there's one there. Now this one's the internal one. I just did the outside one first, so expanded out, and now one's gone inside by the same amount, 12 points I think that was, right? And I'm doing one more. This is going to be slightly smaller offset, and I'm changing the colors so I can see what I'm doing a lot easier for each bit. So hopefully you know how to use the Pathfinder tool. If you don't, please learn it. There's a lot of tutorials out there. Maybe I'll make some on my own for you guys as well if you really want. Just request it. I can always do that. It's not a problem. So I'm doing the smaller increments for the Pathfinder now. This is going to be where the hard edges are going to be. Like, it's going to have like the silvery bits, bezeled effect. So that's where these bits are going to come in play. And I've got like a grey gradient here that I'm going to be using. So just yeah, I think it's pretty much the default grey gradient I'm using for this, but you can customize it to how you like by putting, you know, different shades of grey and darker values. So I've used the eyedropper tool there to place it on top just to see what it'd look like, a quick look. But I'll change the color again into something more solid again. Now what we're gonna be going for is we're gonna cut line sections so we can get this hard edge effect for each little point that meets, you know, in the corners. Where the corners meet, you want that hard edge looking thing, metallic kind of effect. So I'll show you the process if you keep watching how I do that. So as you can see with this grey gradient, you can't really see behind because of the white background. So I'll change it to a solid colour so I can see a lot easier what I'm doing and what I'm selecting, and we can change it back after. So I get my pen tool and just start going from point to point, and yeah, just follow along with the technique I use. So you're going to see how I join these things up. So I'm basically going to be going from one corner to the next corner, so I can get a solid block that I can cut out. So there you go, and it's gonna go on to the next corner there, point. And make sure you have your smart guides turned on as well, so they you know, align to the points a lot easier, the anchor points to each corner. They kind of snap into place. Yeah. So I've changed the color of the path so I can see it again a lot clearer what I'm you know, where I'm going with this. So just working out how I'm going to go about this. You need to take a little step back sometimes, see what's going to be the most efficient way to go about it. And I noticed there's a little point, it's not really a bit jagged edge there, that I'm going to delete the anchor points for. We don't want that, we want it all nice and flush square. So remove them extra points, anchors. So yeah, removed. Now it's nice and clean again. And we'll go back to making some paths, which we're going to use to cut later on. I think I accidentally changed the colours there. Didn't mean to do that. So I've changed. The green bits are going to be the essential parts which you're really focused on cutting. So that's the ones I'm highlighting in the green, so it's more visible. And again, the path is also green, which is not ideal, so I'm going to change that in a second, I'm sure. Use a colour picker and turn it into a pink. Nice bright pink. Pink is always in fashion, isn't it? You know. So again, just going from point to point. So this can be a bit tedious, so just bear with. You can speed it along now if you kind of get the point of what I'm doing at this point, until you see me go around the whole thing. These paths sometimes overlap, but that's fine, you know, because it's the next line. What's the best way to say? It's the next line that you're cutting that you really want to be focused on. So the ones that you've already cut into, it doesn't really matter so much. So you can overlap it there, you know, as you can see, that's what I'm doing. And it's to the next corner you really want to be concerned about. Get that nice and precise. Make sure it's at the exact points, like there, so it clicks into place. Nice and sharp. And then join it up again. So these are going to be made into solids later on, and then I'm going to use the Pathfinder to cut into the graphics underneath. Now this one's going to go along because the rounded corners you don't really want a hard edge, so you can just go along like I'm doing, and until you find a hard, like sharp corner edge point again, and then this is where you click onto it. And now you can go around and join it up again. So it may be a bit confusing at the moment, but once I get further on, you'll see exactly what I'm trying to do. I may even speed the video up at this point because it's fairly repetitive what I'm doing, and yeah, we can probably skip it because I don't want to make the video extra long, you know, for no reason, if I can avoid that. So again, the overlap we've already gone through, and the new point, make sure everything's nice and crisp, so all the points are snapping nicely. Okay, and join it up. Which will become eventual shapes on its own that you can cut into again. So our next corner point is here. Add these up. And join. There you go. The overlap. Now this is quite a long section here, a big piece, so you can keep going around until you kind of come across that hard edge again, corner point, sharp corner points. We're almost getting there now. This is the last section, so you need a solid piece here. Now I've already got two cut lines on either side, so I can just do, you know, an overlapping piece here. It doesn't really matter. You do want to close it off though, because you want this central piece to be sections on its own, so that's why I do go around the whole thing. Now use the Pathfinder and use the trim function. The one on the bottom, very bottom left is what I use. Select everything and then trim it down, and you're going to get lots of cut lines now. So here I do the trimming. Yeah. Actually, it's not the trim function. It's the other one. I get mixed up between the two names. There's a divide, I guess. So, like I said, the one on the very bottom left is what you want to press there. That one, the divide. There you go. Now divided it. I think should be cut into little pieces, as you can see. They've all been cut now. But the only unfortunate thing, they do take on different colours, so you'll have to separate all these out. And the extraneous bits that you don't want, you can just start deleting away now. And then it's going to be like a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, putting it all back together again, but you know, that's the fun. So, okay, so carry on deleting all the bits that you don't want. It's a bit of a confusing mess at the moment, but the more you start resolving the issue, the easier it becomes. What I'm going to start doing here, bits that I know what belong to what sections, I'm going to start joining them up together. So like this bit, I unified it, but it took on that pink colour, so that's not what you want. Sort of selecting the individual pieces and matching it with the next corresponding bit, and basically unifying them so they become one shape. So slowly but surely getting all these sections joined up together again. The bottom bit, I know it's going to be that hard edge, so I'm putting that grey gradient on them now, applying that on. Obviously they're you know, they've got the little cuts in between, and they're going to have to be joined up at certain parts as well. Get rid of bits that you don't want to again see. Make sure you go over your whole design. You might find little straggly bits, so make sure you get rid of all that. You definitely don't want them. And yeah. So this bit is like an extra bit which we don't need, so just getting rid of these now. They're basically overlaps. Get rid of them overlaps. Nasty things. Okay. So join all the hard edge corners. It's going to be easier to work out what I need to do then after. You know, visually becomes easier to read. So I've got pretty much the whole outside edge now, and do it by section by section. So yeah, this solid internal bit, we're getting all these together now. Just going to be the main red bit inside the S. So yeah, the solid S. Oh, you can press. What I'm doing there is pressing Control or Shift Y to get that wireframe view on. And so basically, you can see, you know, the individual lines and stuff a lot easier without any of the shading. So I do that a lot. I think it's Control Y. I mean, kind of just do it instinctively now without even having to think about it. So I'm trying to remember what I do. Actually, here is. This bit here, you can see, needs to be converted into that red. I'm having a little trouble highlighting it and getting the colour for some reason, but yeah, there you go. Eventually worked out. Just joining the dots as we speak. The more you do it, you know, the easier it'll get for you to understand what's going on as well. Practice makes perfect, as they say. So join these edges up, because I know this is going to be that next bevel bit inside. So I'm selecting all of them now, and I'm going to give it that gradient with a colour picker. There you go. Now it's getting easier to read, right? See? It's all starting to come together slowly but surely. Yeah, it should be a nice effect at the end. Like, this is like the jigsaw bit, as you can see. Just, it's kind of fun though. Like I say, reminds me of my school days. You know when you had to fill them colouring books, join the dots and stuff like that. It kind of reminds me of that. So a bit of fun. It's kind of therapeutic, actually, this technique. Not too stressful. Like most other things in life. So again, this pink, select it. If you want the shortcuts, I think Control or Shift, one of the two is Control or Shift A, and it'll do the shortcut to the direct tool. And then for the eye picker, you want the Control and press I for the eye dropper tool to select the colour that you want for it to be, and pick away. Right, so I've got the main internal bit sorted now. Now it's for the other outer edges. I'm going to start joining them up, but leave where the corners are going to intersect with each other. So you want that hard edge. So where it's curved, you don't want any lines there, so you're going to join them up. So unify it with the Pathfinder. Pathfinder is your friend, you know. You got to learn to love it. Don't hate it, love it. It'll become your friend eventually. So I'm going to choose a darker colour here, so I can, you know, tell that it's a different section. Again, easier to read, and so you can see the corners there, so make sure that edge is there as well. And let's keep going on. Again, choose that darker red. Sometimes you'll notice I click away when it's not selecting properly, and then come back and select it again. Then that resolves that problem, because sometimes you can end up selecting the wrong thing for whatever reason. You want that rounded edge joined up together, and leave that sharper join with a line on. So unify this. I lost my pathfinder here, so I need to drag it out again. I'm looking for it. Where's it gone? Go into the menu, bring it back out. There you go. There's a pop-up menu again. Now join that. Join these. So I'm just going around and joining up now to try and speed up time for myself. And then I can just start selecting the individual piece and picking the color. There you go. Select A, select I. Now it's the one next to this hard edge we're going to be working on now, join all these bits together. We're almost there. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel again. This is when it starts getting exciting again, right? Because you can start envisioning the end product, what it's going to be like. Make sure I choose the darker colour for this bit again, because I want it to be separated from the next colour up. Otherwise it just looks like one piece, as you can see right now, which gets a bit confusing. So just go into the colour picker, choose a darker colour, and there you go. Now get all these pinks and colour it up. I just made it a bit darker, I think, for whatever reason. I think I had a harder time seeing it, so yeah, just change it accordingly, how you want to do it. Make sure you got all the colours that you want for the pieces. As you can see on the beveled bit where the chrome effect is, they still need joining up because they look like shattered glass right now. So we'll resolve that in a minute, and then we'll be getting towards the conclusion. These bits want to be that red. Okay. a darker red, the darkest of the reds. The beauty with this as well, you can always, you know, change the colours to how you want it later on. You can go the opposite way, make these edges the lighter side, while the internal ones get darker. So again, it's completely up to you, your freedom, your choice. And I'm adding the bevel bits. We're getting there, guys, we're getting there. We're getting there, guys, we're getting there. Just connecting these last bits up. They start looking good. Then we can get up to the exciting bit. I'm going to them fragmented bits now. Pretty much there. Press that wireframe view again, and so you can check out if there's any bits that shouldn't be there a lot easier. Now I'm selecting the gradient bit, the bezel bit, and just changing the you know, the light and the darks. And what we're going to do for the bottom part of the bezeled bit look effect, we're going to start individually manipulating the tones, the shading. I'll put a background here just so I can see what I'm doing a lot clearer, you know, because it's a lot harder to see what I'm doing with the white background behind it when the grey gets too light. Underneath it kind of turns invisible, so just put a contrasting background in the back there. So what I'm doing here for the bottom bits of the bezel effect, I'm going to make it a bit darker, and where it goes up, it's going to get lighter until it hits like a corner, which is going to, in reality, see less light, so it tends to be darker there in the corner bit. So change it accordingly to how you want. The more realistic you do the shading, the better. So again, I'm just using that grey grading that you can use a default one. Just change it according to how you want to do it. If you want it darker, you know, just play around. You can even use color gradients if you want, you know. But we want to go for that metallic effect. But you could easily replace it with gold if you like, which sometimes I do. So that can be a nice, cool effect to give that luxurious feel. But we want that kind of sporty, hard edge look. So that's the effect we're going for. Again, you can see how things start looking dramatically different when you start changing the shades around, you know, so it does have an effect, a big effect. So just make sure you go around each point. Again, you're going to get more light on the outside edges, so I'm bringing that into light. While in the corners, they get a bit darker. So bring that bit of real world realism into it, and it just becomes more believable then. And things will start to pop. And for the inside bit, so the bezel effect, I'm going to maybe do the opposite. So, well, sort of, at the bottom it's going to get lighter, so just to give it a bit more contrast, you know, that's what I'm going for here. So I don't want everything to be looking too similar to each other, so it just gives that nice little contrast from the bottom, darker bezel effect. But I don't want it to be too dark either, so I will play around with it, so customize it, you know, so it looks good. I zoom in and out a lot, if you notice, because it's very important to see, you know, how things look in the smaller scale as well. If you can still see these lines and stuff clearly enough, that's one very big tip I can offer you guys. Make sure, you know, you zoom in and out a lot often. That's going to determine like a strong mark for you guys, you know, if you can read zoomed out as well as zoomed in. And even squint your eyes a little bit, it'll give that contrast, you know, make sure things are coming through reading and things are not disappearing, you know, the little details too much. So I found it a bit dark there, so I'll just bring a bit more light back in, you know. It doesn't have to be super realistic too, you know. Sometimes you get to play around as a designer, you know, from what looks good to being totally realistic. You get that freedom. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty cool now. Getting towards the end. Now, with this being the initial S, I couldn't think of a name at the time, just because I'm just making a tutorial. It's just really focused on making this S. But yeah, so I just came up with the word sports and just added that just to see how things read. But I'll change it around later on. I'll end up calling it slicks later and taking that into exporting into Photoshop and give it a bit of a backdrop and stuff like that, just to finish the piece off. But yeah, just experimenting, see how it reads with the other lettering besides it, which looks pretty good. So yeah. So depending on the company that you might be designing for, you know, it's good to see how it reads. Standing next slide. So each, you know, you want to play around with the text as well that's going alongside it, so you might even give it effect on its own, but for the sake of this tutorial I'm just doing things very fast, so I'm not going to really play around with it too much because this has taken so long on its own. Otherwise probably a 10-hour video if I did everything as I'd normally do. So you want to play around with the text and you know, make it smaller, wider if you need it. There's a little bit here that I noticed that needs joining up, so need to correct that. Join that to the main piece, the main body, unify it with the Pathfinder. There you go, done, sorted. Now what I'm doing here, I've made another path. The Pathfinder, I've inset it a little bit. This is going to give a nice effect when I do the glossy effect, so you'll see how it comes together in a minute. So I'm going to put a little gradient on. Again, it's just going to be the standard grey that I'm going to go for. We're picking the standard grey, don't want any colour on this. So you see the white and black at the very top, the default. We're going for the default, guys. And so change that around, as you can see. Get a gradient that you can be happy with. As you can see, it's a layer on top of the other. A separate piece all on its own entity, and we're going to use this arc tool to do the actual cut into this piece, and you'll see why in a moment. So I'm just going to get the alignment how I want it, where I want that cut to be. So just being a bit careful here. Because once you make the cut, it's kind of going to be kind of hard to go back, and well, not impossible, but just time consuming to go back. So just make sure you got things aligned how you want before you start applying all the different effects, because it's a pain having to go back, you know, do the undos. So try and get it right. Okay, so I've done the divide option on the Pathfinder there, as you can see. Now that's split up, and the bottom section I'm just going to delete. So it's just going to leave the top parts now. And this is going to have like a nice sheen and gloss effect on top. So go into the layers, then the transparency there, and put onto screen. And you can already see that gloss effect, but I wasn't quite happy with how it is sort of like reflecting, I guess, so I just change it to a value that I'm more comfortable with. That looks good. Again, you know, experimenting. And there's a few strenuous lines which I need to get rid of, which you'll see me doing in a second as well. Like this, the arc line. Need to get rid of that. Don't want them hanging around. Just get rid. Make sure there's nothing else. Okay, that seems fine. So I'll group these together and try and get a nice gradient. I'm really not happy how I keep fiddling. But yeah. You can even drop the opacity, how you want to pronounce it, to a value you're more happy with as well, if you like. That's starting to come together quite good. Oh, there again, I'm still not happy. So I'm zooming in and out again, using that technique to make sure things read nicely. Out. So I've just ungrouped everything there, and I'm going to select the main red bit and give it a gradient there as well, and it's really going to pop then. I think I'm about to place a drop shadow here, so I'm selecting everything. I'm going to join it up, put it in its own layer, unify with the pathfinder again, deal with the sports thing, I don't need that, so it's one shape, colour it black. Again, this is in its separate layer, so I can just fiddle around. You know, I like working with layers because I'm used to Photoshop, so I put everything in layers. Just a habit of mine. And we're going to apply effect. So you see in a minute. I'm looking for it. Forgot where it was. It's been a while since I did this. I'm having trouble finding this effect, the drop shadow effect. I'll get there. Sometimes you have them moments, don't you, where you can't find anything that you really want. I think I was having them moments here. Oh, there you go. Finally, phew. Right, so apply the effect. And change accordingly, you know. You can see the values I'm placing. Like bring it out a little bit more to the right and to the bottom. So it's starting to pop out now. So the S is like standing out from the background. Now this is the bit where I'm going to apply like a little gradient on the actual main red bit of the S, and it's really going to pop then. So again, go to the gradient, there you go. Don't want it too dark, so I get rid of that black from the gradient on the right. Go for something in between, I think. And just start playing around again until I get an effect I'm really happy with. Like I didn't like how it was getting too dark towards the bottom, so I wanted something in between. So I'll play around a little bit until I get a result that I can sit more happier with. Felt it was slightly maybe a bit too dark at the top there, so I'm just playing around again until I get a happy medium eventually. get rid of the white so it's not too bright at the bottom of the gradient, and drag it up a little bit so it's not as dark again at the top, and there you go. It's not looking too bad. Get more of that juicy red in there. Just playing around the text of the a little bit until it kind of marries a bit better together. So using the shear tool here and make it lean to the right a little bit more. But it's more of a placeholder really. I'll change it later on. Yeah, I'll end up changing it. So as you can see here, I've exported everything out into Photoshop, changed the name so it reads as Slicks now, and yeah, so, and like I said, I exported everything out into Photoshop, put a bit of a backdrop, enlarged it, you know, and hopefully it looks a bit better presentational purposes now. So again guys, if you liked what I produced here and you'd like to see more content in the future, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and then it's going to encourage me to produce a lot more, you know, knowing that I'm getting good positive feedback you know, encourages me to, you know, go out my way to produce more content for you guys, because, you know, I am doing this out of my own time, and so yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. I'll be happy to produce more in the future, so I hopefully look forward to speaking to you guys again soon. Okay, bye bye for now. See ya.